Well, I finally completed Tomb Raider 2, the remastered 2024 version. In this video, I'll be sharing my thoughts after replaying Tomb Raider 2 to completion for the very first time. Although I played all 6 of the original installments years ago, I never actually finished them, and I'll explain why in a bit. Rather than giving you one of my traditional reviews, this video will focus primarily on the remastered version itself. At the same time, I also want to give those of you who are new to Tomb Raider an idea of what to expect out of this remaster.
Don't you think you've seen enough?
Those of us who already played these games in the past, to some extent, we know what they're all about. But for the newer players, this remaster may very well be their very first experience with the original trilogy, aside from the Survivor trilogy, which a lot of the newer generation gamers are familiar with, rather. So I'll primarily be talking about the remaster and its features while pointing out where it could have done a better job. Just as I do with my review videos, I'll be breaking this video down into the pros and cons I found in the Tomb Raider 2 remaster. If there's one thing I genuinely appreciate about this remaster, it's that a new generation of gamers get to experience these classics and see how challenging they truly were back in the day. At the same time, it also gives a longtime fans a chance to revisit these adventures, especially if they no longer own the original hardware. I'll be talking more about the difficulty in just a minute. Personally, I never cared to pick up this Remaster Collection because I already own the original copies, which I can still play in their original form. That said, I also understand that many new gamers do not own a PlayStation 1 or even a PS2 or 3 with backwards compatibility. Another reason I wasn't particularly excited about this collection was the reported use of AI during its development. Although Aspyr, the studio, has denied some of those claims, the studio has faced criticism over the use of AI, particularly following the AI-generated voice lines featured in the Tomb Raider 4-6 Remaster Collection. I haven't personally played those remasters, so I can't comment on them directly. Now, some people will point out that Crystal Dynamics has also used and acknowledged the use of AI in the upcoming Tomb Raider Legacy of Atlantis. But while I'm looking forward to it and excited, here's the key difference. And it's something I respect: transparency and intent.
Lost Worlds.
AI-assisted tools were used during the development to support some early exploration and temporary development content. Any AI-assisted assets were either replaced or refined by humans in order to maintain the creative and artistic vision of the development team. Their disclosure on Steam. Not sure if I'll believe that at 100%, but I'll take it as is. Another quote said, "At Crystal Dynamics, we leverage AI tools to help our teams iterate on ideas faster and more efficiently, while ensuring that all business content in the final product is human-crafted. Our goal is to empower the creativity and flexibility of our developers to deliver the highest quality experiences for players everywhere." A statement made to Eurogamer.
To uncover the secrets of Atlantis.
If that's truly the case, then I'm fine with it, I guess, for now. I guess when used in moderation, AI can be a valuable tool to help developers iterate on ideas faster and more efficiently, especially during the early stages of development, as long as the final product remains fully human-crafted, in my personal opinion. To me, that's very different from using it heavily in a remaster where the foundation already exists and the goal is mainly to enhance what was already built with improved visuals, features, and controls that unfortunately, in this case, those improvements didn't fully come through. I'll talk more about that as I go. And for which, some of those points are in my cons. So my point is, it is great to make these retro games available on newer generation consoles, but not when the work behind it is heavily done by AI. Note, for as far as I know. Or let me know to what extent the AI was used in these remaster versions aside from the couple points I already mentioned. One thing I genuinely appreciate about this Remaster Collection is that it includes all of the DLC expansion packs for each game, something I never got a chance to play back in the day. As of the making of this video, I am currently making my way through Tomb Raider 1 expansion pack, Unfinished Business. And wow, it's challenging as hell. Those skinless enemies sure are pretty creepy as hell. Maybe I'll talk more about Unfinished Business in a future video. But for now, I just wanted to point out that having all the expansion packs included in this collection is something I really appreciate. The challenge. Yes, this is a pro for me. But wait, how is the challenge a pro? Well, this remaster doesn't have traditional difficulty settings, which I'm glad they didn't add such feature. You get the game as hard as it originally was with no options to tone things down. If anything, after finishing the game, you can unlock New Game Plus, which of course, as you would expect, it cranks the challenge up even further. And honestly, I like that, because the original installments didn't have that. Now, the fact that a lot of modern games have the tendency to lean on things like highlighted, climbable ledges, yellow paints, objective markers, or hint systems that constantly point you in the right direction, personally for me, that's been more of an annoyance in the industry. The fun of these games is for you to deliberately get lost, pay attention to your surroundings, and figuring shit out on your own. So I'm glad that Aspyr didn't feel the need to retrofit this Tomb Raider collection with those kind of modern designs, trends for this new generation of spoon-fed gamers, because it sure keeps the experience true to what made these games memorable in the first place. The game simply drops you in the world and expects you to figure it out. Sometimes that's frustrating, sometimes it's brutal, and sometimes you'll spend way longer than you like trying to find your way forward. But to me, that's part of what makes a classic Tomb Raider game. And holy damn, one thing I had completely forgotten about was just how brutally difficult Tomb Raider 2 can be. Sure, the combat and platforming can be unforgiving, but that's not even the hardest part. Some of these levels are so cryptic that simply figuring out where you're supposed to go next can be a challenge all on its own. Honestly, I would have had a hard time believing anyone who made it through this game without looking something up at least once. And if you're gonna tell me you did, damn, you're a fucking liar. Unless you were part of the original development team and knew exactly what to do and how to do it. Otherwise, I will not believe you. Back then, looking something up didn't mean opening YouTube or searching Google. You either asked a friend, hope a gaming magazine happened to cover that particular section, or if you were one of those rich little brats, you called the official Tomb Raider hint line, which was right there on the original instruction manual if you had one. Take a look at that, 95 cents per minute.
95 cents per minute?
Fudge! Back when Funkos were charged by the minute. That definitely wasn't cheap. Now, were you one of those rich little brats calling the hint line? And while you were at it, did you also order anything from the idol store? Because just take a look at some of those prices. $450 for a bomber jacket, $200 sunglasses, $75 for a briefcase. Damn, even a t-shirt was 15 bucks, which is not much. And I mean, unless you were living the Lara Croft rich archaeologist lifestyle, I don't know who the fuck was buying this stuff. Sure, today some of those prices might not seem all that unusual, but back in the 1990s, remember, completely different economy, those were some serious expensive items. So yeah, I guess that was part of the experience back then. If you got stuck, you either figure it out, pay for it somehow through a magazine purchase or hotline help, or suffered through it until it clicked. No YouTube, no quick fixes, just you and the game and a whole lot of patience being tested. After replaying Tomb Raider 2 all these years later, I can honestly say I didn't remember just how brutal it could be. Along with Tomb Raider 3, it's easily one of the toughest entries in the series. And I believe it's a pretty common opinion within the Tomb Raider community that the Temple of Xi'an and the Floating Islands rank among the toughest levels in the entire franchise, right alongside some of those brutal levels found in Tomb Raider 3. I can almost be certain that some of those developers just sat there for a second laughing their asses off, wondering how many players and gamers they were about to piss off and make them go ape shit with some of these puzzles and hand encrypted pathways. Sometimes you're in a room pulling a lever for a door that opens somewhere completely different in another part of the level, in a separate room. Other times, you don't even see anything opening. You just hear a door sound or get a quick door opening clip, and then you're left there standing thinking, okay, but where did it actually open? Because more often than not, you already moved on or forgotten exactly where that other room even was, so now you're retracing halfway through the level trying to figure out what you just triggered. Oh, and God forbid if it was one of those time-sensitive doors where you had to run your ass off through the whole entire room or two and get through some hurdles at the same time in order to get through the door before it shut again. But yeah, that was part of the experience back then, and honestly, that's probably why these games stuck with people so much. Yep, so challenge. And keeping it its authenticity as it was originally back in the day, it's definitely a pro. I know this may sound a bit contradictory compared to what I said earlier about not being a fan of modern hand-holding features like indicators or guidance systems, so let me clarify. For someone like me who can't afford long gaming sessions anymore, this is actually one of those changes I really appreciate. I can't always sit down and play for hours at a time, so having the ability to save anywhere, anytime means I'm not constantly losing 20 or 30 minutes of progress just because I missed a jump or got caught up in a bad section. So while I'm critical of some modern design choices, this feature is one that I actually appreciated. So take it as you will. I repeat, in my case, Saving a game anywhere at any time, it's kind of cool because there are no auto saves, but at least you are no longer restricted by the save crystals from the original PlayStation versions. If you want to save every 2 minutes, every 5 minutes, after each room, after each battle, go for it. Each game also gives you a generous number of save slots, more than enough if you're keeping a separate saves for every level or chapter, just like I did for the purpose to capture different areas from my personal gameplay for this video. Now, I don't know if this was just me, but god damn, I can't tell you how many times I tried to save my game only to accidentally select load instead, and ended up replaying so many sections because of that. And of course, it always seemed to happen in the most frustrating parts of the game, those exact sections I wanted to get over with. Now, I thought I would mention these even though personally it's really not a big deal to me. This remaster includes a photo mode, and for me, it does absolutely nothing. I've messed around with photo mode in a couple other games like Horizon and Stellar Blade, and of course I gave it a try in here as well. It has pretty much everything you would expect. Different poses, outfits, facial expressions, hand positions, weapons, camera controls, the whole package. But it's never been a feature I've gotten excited about. That's maybe because photography it's already one of my hobbies outside of gaming in real life. So I guess taking pictures in a video game has never scratched that same itch for me. Yeah. I know. Calm the hell down. I know I'm not out there taking pictures of dinosaurs, taking selfies with creepy skinless enemies, or exploring upside down ships like the Maria Doria. I get it, but you get my point. I'm not talking about the graphical enhancements. The visuals are probably my biggest criticism of this remastered version, and it all comes down to one thing in particular. The lighting inconsistency throughout the game. I constantly found myself switching back and forth between the retro and modern graphics, not just because I wanted to reminisce about how these areas looked back in the day, but because I genuinely needed to figure out where I was supposed to go next. And I repeat, I'm okay when this is all a natural part of the challenge. I'm not talking about sections where you are expected to use a flare. I'm talking about the ordinary rooms where it wasn't always clear whether a ledge was climbable, whether a platform was reachable, or even where the intended path was. So playing this original trilogy for the first time in years or even decades by now, remembering where I was supposed to go without consulting a guide sure became a challenge. So depending on which visual mode I was using, parts of the environment would sometimes blend into everything else, or everything around. Don't get me wrong, that was part of the challenge even back in the day with the original games, and somehow we all dealt with it. But this is a remaster. This was the perfect opportunity to improve the visual readability of the environment without changing the gameplay itself. I'm not asking the game to hold my hand or make puzzles easier. I just wanted the lighting environments to communicate a little more clearly. What made it even more frustrating about the lighting inconsistency was that sometimes the modern graphics made an area easier to read. Other times I would switch back to the original pixelated graphics because they actually lit the room better. One room will look better in the remaster, the next look better with the original visuals. So I found myself toggling back and forth between the two more times than necessary. Now, to be fair, being able to swap between the original and the remastered graphics instantly with the press of a button without having to interrupt the game, it's actually a really cool feature. In fact, I probably should have mentioned that in my pros, but at the same time, I don't think I should have had to rely on it just to figure out where I was supposed to jump or go next. The controls, oh god. Hear me out. If you've never played a game with tank controls before, they can be a real pain in the ass to get used to. And unfortunately, the modern controls in this remaster don't help nearly as much as I was hoping they would. Learning and getting used to the original control scheme, the tank controls, almost feels like you need a PhD in gaming controls just to move Lara around properly. And yes, I experienced this myself. Coming back to Tomb Raider after all these years, I had to readjust all over again during the first couple of levels, where I even got my ass handed to me by the first tiger encounter I ran into, simply because I was still fighting the controls instead of the tigers. It took me a while before everything started feeling natural again. I know these are not the very first tiger encounters of the game, but I just pretty much ran away from the very first tiger encounter upon entering the very first area of the first level. And I'm not just talking about Tomb Raider. Back then, this was simply how a lot of three-dimensional games controlled. Remember, the original PlayStation didn't even launch with analog stick controllers, so these games were designed around the D-pad. The analog controller didn't arrive in America until August 1997, only a few months before Tomb Raider 2 launched that November. Even then, not everyone owned an analog controller and not every game supported true analog movement. Tomb Raider was one of those games that didn't. It wasn't until the time when Tomb Raider 3 came out that analog support was starting to become more common. But Tomb Raider 2 was still very much designed around the D-pad scheme. As frustrating as the tank controls can be, though, I honestly think there's still a better way to play this game, whether you're playing the original or this remaster. And yes, I know how crazy that sounds. I'll explain why in a second. For me, navigating a 3D environment with a D-pad has never really been my thing, and I hated it. It wasn't just Tomb Raider back in the day. There were many more games I grew frustrated with and never finished. Like I mentioned in the past, Resident Evil, another game was Fate of Black, 3D fighting games like Tekken and Tekken 2. God, I hated those. But I digress. Let's keep on going. Moving Lara around on foot feels slow and clunky, while the vehicle sections feel like the complete opposite. They feel slippery, overly sensitive, and making a simple turn can feel like you're driving on ice. Not because you're literally driving on ice on the snowmobile level. But honestly, that's not even my biggest issue. The modern controls in this remaster just don't work well with the kind of precision Tomb Raider demands. Let me explain. In open areas and during combat, the modern controls actually feel pretty decent. Having a full 360-degree movement with the analog stick is actually what you would expect from a modern game. The problem starts the moment you enter the platforming sections. Classic Tomb Raider is built around precision. Some jumps feel like Lara has to take off from the very last possible pixel of solid ground. That's where the modern controls start to work against you instead of helping you. With the modern control scheme, Lara's movement is tied to the camera. When the camera behaves, everything's fine. But in tight corridors, narrow ledges, or cramped areas, the camera starts clipping through walls, bouncing around and suddenly changing angles. Before you know it, you're running into walls, spinning in circles, or worse, running straight off a cliff because the camera suddenly shifted directions. To me, that's a programming oversight on the modern control scheme. With the original tank controls, Lara moves independently from the camera. Once you line up a jump, it feels like you have better camera control and Lara will still move exactly as you desire. So that's why, as groggy as the tank controls feel, eventually I ended up giving up on modern controls and switched back to tank controls. As weird as that sounds, the original controls simply fit the game's design better. They consistently deliver the pixel-perfect precision these platforming sections expect, while the modern controls often make those same moments harder than they need to be. As of the making of these videos, these issues still haven't been addressed with an update or patch for the modern controls. And this is disappointing because this also ties into my next con point I'll be talking about for not having any updates.
Pardon me, if that was just...
Another thing I couldn't help but notice was the camera during the cutscenes. For whatever reason, it constantly jitters and shakes, and once you notice it, it's hard to unsee it.
I understand that somehow is in my favor, so indulge me about the dagger. I'd be indebted with your life.
These doors are waiting for the right one, the right time to arrive, and then the dagger's blade.
Now, this doesn't ruin the game or anything like that, but having to be a remaster, it's the kind of polished work I expect to already be there. It feels like something that should have been caught during testing or at the very least with a patch by now. As of the recording of this video and 2 years after the remaster came out, that still hasn't happened.
Perhaps not just yet then.
It's a huge issue, but it's one of those little details that keeps reminding you that this remaster needed a bit more polish than it got. For reference, I played it on the PC version, so I can't say whether this issue also happens on consoles. And it's such a minute detail that I truly believe they could have taken care of that.
Gianni's vessel deep into these waters. Now I'm here, was here, to prevent his son from salvaging the Seraph.
The Seraph?
You not know my life's work well. You sure you're not here for them?
Their Jackanory days are well over.
Oh.
The true detox of evil.
Where can you be taking me? Thought this was my big break. Guess changes out put us rest. Oh, I need one.
The lack of extra features, or quality of life options in this remaster, especially the ability to replay cutscenes. This may not seem like a huge deal for the first time playthrough, but for anyone revisiting the game or trying to capture footage, like me, it would have made things a lot easier. And honestly, some of these cutscenes are just fun to watch on their own, even a bit funny at times. So being able to rewatch them easily would have added to the experience instead of forcing you to rely on a save file or replaying those particular sections of the game. Especially for those of us who enjoy revisiting memorable moments, or in my case, creating videos like this one, having a simple cutscene viewer would have been a really nice extra. Overall, this remastered version, in my opinion, felt really basic. More like a bare minimum new coat of paint rather than a fully enhanced remaster that takes things further in a meaningful way. I'm not expecting remake, level changes, or anything like that, but when you see fan-made projects or solo individuals creating far superior remasters or remakes of their own with a little bit more ambition behind them, it does feel a bit more disappointing coming from a studio that clearly has the resources and budget to do more. Now, I'm not singling out Tomb Raider here. This has been my biggest pet peeve with remasters in general. A lot of these remasters, like the Super Mario 3D All-Stars, Skyward Sword HD, Metroid Prime, are essentially just piss-poor ports that are basically built to make these older titles playable again on modern consoles and modern TVs. Especially for people who don't have access to the original hardware anymore, or who can't realistically deal with the limitations of running them on older systems today. Sometimes it feels like smaller creators are pushing these older games further than these bigger studios, and once again, that's what's disappointing. It often feels like there isn't much more beyond that. More like preservation and accessibility first, and less about truly reimagining or enhancing the experience. Now, I know I'm using the word reimagine here kind of loosely because I know I am very well aware before you jump in the comment section that remaster and remakes are not the same thing, and I know that. But if you're gonna give me a remaster like on this case, give me more. That's all I ask for. Don't give me a piss poor AI looking graphic enhanced game. Like I mentioned in my Tomb Raider anniversary review video, go check it out if you haven't, which by the way, I deliberately titled it Tomb Raider Anniversary, the perfect remaster, even though it's not a remaster, it's a remake, I know, for those trolls who came in the comment section, but if you pay attention to the video, you'll see why I referred to it as the perfect remaster. But I digress. If you're a newer player who never got to experience these games back in the 90s, and you don't have access to the original hardware, then honestly, these remasters are probably your best way to play them today. For me, I only ended up picking up this collection up because I got it through a free digital code in an Amazon deal sometime last year. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have gone out of my way to get it. I also haven't picked up the Tomb Raider 4 through 6 Remaster Collection, and honestly, I don't really feel like I need to since I already own the original games anyway and can play them on original hardware as well, even on a CRT TV setup. Now, just to be clear, everything I've talked about in terms of negatives is directed at this remaster version, not the actual game. The game, and the other games, still hold up incredibly well. That said, the remaster does include some additional content like challenge mode and unlockable outfits, and the reason why I didn't mention these on my pro points, it's because personally, for me, features like challenge modes and time trials have never really been my thing in any game. So while I recognize that they are there, that didn't really add much to my experience, and even though I can see how other players would enjoy that extra replay value, for me it didn't really change the experience. I repeat, when I make these videos, I'm sharing my points of view and my thoughts based on my personal experience, not on what the whole entire game offered or did not offer. Ultimately, whether on the original PlayStation or in these remaster versions, these games still stand strong as classics. Thanks to Tomb Raider and Lara Croft, this series became a cultural phenomenon that still has a strong fan base today. I would even go as far as saying that Lara Croft, in terms of popularity, surpassed many other early PlayStation mascots. I'm not saying this as a Tomb Raider fan. I did like Crash Bandicoot as well, but in terms of cultural impact, I believe Tomb Raider really stood out on its own. Not in a better or worse sense. Of course, everyone is going to have their favorite game over Tomb Raider from that era, like Crash Bandicoot, of course, Metal Gear Solid, Final Fantasy VII, Gran Turismo, Castlevania Symphony of the Night, just to name a few, and that's completely fine. But for me, Tomb Raider, it's one of those franchises that it really helped define that era of open exploration based gaming. So thank you very much for sticking around on this long ass video. And like everyone says, go ahead and hit that like button or dislike button if that was the case. Either way, if you want to see more gaming content, even though I do not post very often, hit the subscribe button while you're at it. And you know what? Why not? While you're at it as well, go ahead and feel free to share this video with those Tomb Raider fanatics friends of yours. Those guys are the ones that I would love to hear from on these thoughts of mine.
Don't you think you've seen enough?
Until the next one, game on!